Ryan and Tony, two brothers from Washington, D.C., had always felt trapped by their circumstances. They lived in a neighborhood where opportunities were scarce and crime was often seen as the only way to get ahead. Their latest plan was to rob a seemingly ordinary suburban home in a quiet part of the city, believing it would be an easy target. The house belonged to the Mitchells, an average-looking family, a father who worked a 9-to-5 job, a stay-at-home mother, and their two children. On the outside, everything about the Mitchells screamed normalcy. Ryan and Tony had observed the family for weeks, noting their routines and habits. They chose a night when the family was supposed to be out for dinner, believing the house would be empty. As the sun set, Ryan and Tony approached the house, its neatly trimmed lawn and picket fence giving no hint of the horror within. Ryan easily picked the lock on the back door, and they slipped inside, their footsteps silent on the hardwood floors. The interior was typical of any suburban home: cozy furniture, family photos on the walls, and the faint smell of home-cooked meals lingering in the air. The brothers split up to cover more ground, each taking a different part of the house. Ryan headed upstairs, passing by the children's bedrooms, which were filled with toys and bright decorations. He felt a twinge of guilt, but pushed it aside, focusing on the task at hand. Tony stayed on the ground floor, rummaging through the living room and kitchen for valuables. Suddenly, Tony heard a soft click behind him. He turned to see the front door slowly closing on its own. The temperature in the room seemed to drop, and a chill ran down his spine. He brushed it off as nerves and continued his search. Upstairs, Ryan was going through the master bedroom when he heard the faint sound of giggling. He froze, listening intently. The giggling grew louder, more sinister. He stepped into the hallway, flashlight in hand, and saw a small figure at the end of the corridor. It was a child, standing in the shadows. "Hey, kid," Ryan whispered, trying to sound friendly. The child didn't move. Ryan took a step closer, and the child suddenly darted into one of the bedrooms. Ryan followed, but when he entered the room, it was empty. The giggling continued, now seeming to come from all around him. Tony, meanwhile, was in the kitchen when he noticed the family photos on the fridge. The faces in the photos seemed distorted, their smiles twisted into grimaces. He felt a sudden surge of fear and decided it was time to leave. He called out to Ryan, but his voice seemed to be swallowed by the oppressive silence of the house. As Ryan explored further, he entered what appeared to be a playroom. The walls were covered in crude drawings, all depicting the same scene: a family being tormented by dark, shadowy figures. The drawings grew more disturbing as he looked closer, showing scenes of violence and terror. He backed out of the room, the giggling now accompanied by whispers. Tony reached the base of the stairs, calling for Ryan again. This time he heard footsteps descending. Relief washed over him, but it was short-lived. The figure that appeared at the top of the stairs wasn't his brother. It was a tall, thin man with hollow eyes and a twisted smile. "Leaving so soon?" the man asked, his voice a mocking echo. Tony stumbled back, tripping over a rug and falling to the floor. The man began to descend the stairs slowly, his smile growing wider. Ryan, hearing Tony's scream, rushed to the stairs. He saw the man and felt an overwhelming sense of dread. He grabbed Tony by the arm, pulling him to his feet, and they bolted for the back door. As they ran, the house seemed to come alive, the walls closing in and the air growing thick and suffocating. They reached the back door, but it wouldn't open. The man was right behind them, his presence filling the room with an unbearable sense of terror. In a final act of desperation, Ryan smashed a window with a nearby chair, and they scrambled through the broken glass, cutting themselves in the process. But as soon as they climbed through the window, they found themselves back in the living room, the door to the outside world still closed and locked. They exchanged horrified glances, realizing they were trapped. The man appeared again, this time accompanied by the two children, their eyes glowing with a sinister light. The family surrounded them, their smiles wide and eyes devoid of humanity. The walls began to close in, the house itself seeming to pulse with a dark energy. "You can never leave," the father said, his voice echoing through the house. "This is your home now." The brothers screamed, but their cries were swallowed by the house. The Mitchells advanced, their forms shifting and distorting into monstrous shapes. Ryan and Tony backed into a corner, their hearts pounding as the darkness closed in around them. The house stood silent and still once more, an ordinary suburban home on a quiet street. The Mitchells continued their lives as if nothing had happened, their perfect facade hiding the horrors within. And somewhere deep inside the house, the whispers of Ryan and Tony's tormented souls joined those of the others who had fallen victim to the house's dark power.